I hope you had interesting discussions in the small roundtables, and you are here for another set of presentations. So the objective of this session, first, the title is Transforming Africa's Education through ICTs. As you have heard from the UNESCO director this morning, if we want to achieve the MDG goals for Africa, in fact for all over the world, for education, it is not possible to do it in the old ways, because we will not be able to achieve those goals even at the end of the century, and we only have until 2030. So we have to come with innovative solutions. The old ways won't be sufficient. So here I'm happy to say that we have people who have tried to do things differently and who have been able to succeed in educational programs that use innovative solutions. So I would like to introduce the speakers of this session. The first speaker is Ms. Roksi Freeman, who is digital publication specialist at the Massachusetts Institute of Neuroscience. The open sharing to help make high-quality education available to everyone. As you probably know, MIT is the first or one of the first higher education organizations around the world who has been providing its high-quality educational materials available freely for the world. And I think it's very interesting to hear from her. The second speaker is Dr. Pascal Hoba, who is CEO of UBUNTUNET. You know probably UBUNTUNET is the research and education network for East and Southern Africa. Pascal previously was Director of Knowledge Management and ICT Services at the Association of African Universities based in Ghana. I'm not going to give all their bios. You'll have them online. These are all people who have done so many things, and it will be very difficult to summarize. The third speaker will be Mr. Paul Ronoh at my left, who is Director for Programs and Standards at ICT Authority in Kenya. He is also National Director coordinating the Digital Literacy Program, Laptop for Schools. He has a wealth of experience in implementation of huge ICT programs for government. And at my right, we have Mr. Tighe Flanagan, who is Senior Manager at Wikipedia Education Program for Wikimedia Foundation. Mr. Flanagan managed the education team at the Wikimedia Foundation. They support program leaders around the world who use Wikipedia in education. And as you know, Wikipedia, I'm sure, I don't think that there is anyone who hasn't used Wikipedia in this room, so you know what I'm talking about. And that is one of the innovative solutions to bring knowledge to the world. So I think it's interesting to hear how they have come to this and what are their successes and challenges and what Africa can learn from this experience. So without taking too much time, I would like to invite Roksi to the podium so that she can make her presentation. Roksi? Okay. So maybe we can start with Pascal. Pascal, you can start?
Oh, no problem.
Okay, good.
Should I go there?
Yes, please.
So from Kigali.
Pascal.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to talk about the UBUNTUNET Alliance, what we are doing, and how we think that our work can bring innovations in African to respond to the challenge of African research. I'm Pascal Hoba, the CEO of UBUNTUNET Alliance, who is a regional research education network for East and Southern Africa. And this is the outline of my presentations. I don't think I will go through all of them, but I will highlight some of the salient points. So, the connectivity business which UBUNTUNET worked and actions that work on it has a history. This history comes from Vice Chancellor himself. In 2005, African Association African University Vice Chancellor met in Cape Town in South Africa, where there is the concern to find the solutions of the challenges of connectivity. So what we are doing today is come from there, simply because the diagnostic based on inadequate infrastructure in terms of capacity and dedicated higher education network, campus network for higher education institutions. And of course, the poor quality of those infrastructure. So the solution, what we are trying to provide is this model to mutualize our resources at campus level, national level, as well as regional level, and also the necessity to create adequate ICT infrastructure, which can start at country level to have a proper national fiber infrastructure, and also the necessity to create a dedicated network for connectivity. And again, if we want all this to impact on research, then we need a continuous training. And of course, when you have infrastructure, then it should facilitate the collaboration for researcher and solve the problem that affect African higher education institutions. So just 2 words on UBUNTUNET Alliance. We are the alliance formed by 16 members. And as you can see, this is the group of institution, NREN, that a member of UBUNTUNET Alliance. And this is our current network. I don't think it's very relevant for this platform. So just to give you an idea where we are today. So, NREN, National Research Education Network, typically will provide advanced congestion-free internet connectivity and services dedicated to support the work of a university and research institution in the country. It's vital progress local and global educations and research by providing e-learning and e-sciences applications, for example, telemedicine. So we think that our work can have an impact if we can bring the collaborations that can facilitate the work of researchers. So far, there are so many NREN in the world, and the work is addressed directly to the MDGs. How does it work? How globally NREN that compose the various countries in the region, how they can impact on the research. So this is, for example, on NREN 1A. So So as you can see, if you have an infrastructure, and suppose the NN one is a network for National Research Education Network for Kenya, the B is Uganda, and the C is Rwanda. So if those NREN are connected to the regional one, and the regional one to the worldwide, then we should be able to share resources. So if we want something new that impacts, then the NREN researcher in those countries or institution that on the network should provide something more than the connectivity. And it could be the content. We know by principle that each university produce knowledge. So if those knowledge produced by the university themselves is packaging as part of the connectivity service that they have, then we are now solve a problem. Then you are now propose not only access of infrastructure or capacity of access to internet, but in addition, researcher in one country can collaborate, from one country to the neighbor country can collaborate, and the regional level can collaborate, and of course can collaborate on worldwide. And this is what so far it exists. Our NREN, we peer with GEAN in Europe, and from GEAN we peer with Internet 2 in the US, and other REN around the world. Of course, we did this with some funding from European Union, who helped us to put out the infrastructure that we are using today. And globally, we have this UBUNTUNET Alliance, WACREN and ASHREN in the north. And why do we need it? We still need, because we still have, in terms of connectivity, we have a big gap, and we need a support to cover those gaps. Africa still the least connected continent, the planet, even if in terms of penetrations, the rate in terms of penetration is quite higher, but we still need more connectivity in the region. The capacity growth is higher, but it's because we started from very late. Then, how this can impact globally? When you see the way we are providing connectivity to institutions, and when you saw those figures, which in 5 years ago, when University of Zambia was paying megabyte per second at around 300, 400 US dollar megabyte per second, be on the regional network, which is mutualized our resources, today they are paying $30 megabyte per second. So this is a huge change that provides the connectivity to all the higher education institutions in Zambia, as well as in Uganda, and a help of collaboration. So this is, we think, an innovative way of responding to the challenges of research in Africa. And of course, we have all this from Algeria to Rwanda. So many institutions have been connected to the country NREN, and from the NREN to the regional REN. And of course, how can we concretely impact? We're using, this is a video, but I won't pass the video. This researcher, who's working in Zambia, and she said, 4 years ago, when she was doing on research on agriculture, she has to do some modeling and download some big data. She said it took her 2 full days. When she connected, she used her laptop, she had to secure somewhere, and she should be very lucky that there is no power fluctuations. And this her work, how she can do her work. Then Zambia, through the Zambian University, were connected through the ZAMREN, which is the National Research Education of Zambia. Immediately, the capacity to have access to internet has changed completely. What she was taking for her 2 days to download now is about an hour. is huge. It's huge. So we think this is a very innovative way to address the challenges that affect research. One of the applications, EduROM, we think that through our network, even EduROM, which is the federated service for email address, with the password that they have on their institutions, when you travel in the same country to another campuses, you have internet access directly. When you travel abroad to another country or in Europe, and go in an institution which is registered on EduROM, you have automatic access to internet using your same email address and the same password that you have in your own country. So this is a very tangible, smart way to facilitate the work of researchers. Some recommendation that I don't think it is essential here, but it is mostly a recommendation in terms of resource allocations to help NREN at country level to be able to impact on the research. I want to stop here. I have some example follow, but when the question will come, I may come back because I have some research collaborations example which are here. I'll thank you for now.
Thank you very much, Pascal, for the very interesting presentation. I think we can now go to, is Roksi's presentation ready? Victor? Okay. Yes. All the presentations are here.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to participate in these discussions. This is all really cool, and it's dawning on me how much there is to do. I work at OpenCourseWare at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and I'm going to be talking today about how we make high-quality educational material available to everybody, and our goal is to do it at scale.
Roksi, can you get nearer to the speaker because we can't hear you very well.
Is this better? Okay, so we're trying to produce digital technology and give educational materials at scale for free. And I'm going to talk about how we do this through the Office of Digital Learning. So our mission is to transform teaching at MIT and around the globe with the use of innovative digital technologies. And we're doing this by creating educational material for every age group, from high school students and college students, independent learners, professionals, and educators. And we're doing all of this under a Creative Commons license. This is our website, which allows us to freely distribute this material. You can remix it, you can give it to anyone you want, and we really encourage educators to use this material in their own classes in their own way. OCW doesn't require any credentials or registration. You literally just go to the site, click the button, and access the materials. So it's very self-paced. And it's totally free. We were founded about 16 years ago at the height of the .com era. That was before Facebook or YouTube was there. And MIT faculty thought that this would help further MIT's mission of bringing knowledge to bear on the world. We have a companion site, which is geared for high school students and high school educators, where we provide STEM and humanities material for them. We also have the educator page, which is about instructional approach, and you can watch videos of teachers talking about their class, which is really good for getting people excited about learning, because there's such an issue with motivation for using this material. But OCW Educator is trying to get people excited by watching dynamic discussions with professors and their students. And educators can use it to search for the kind of material they want. They can look for specifically audio video lectures or exams, for instance. So here's an example of one of our sites. As you can see, this material gets pretty rich. And you just use the search function, and you can search by topic, or you can use the course numbering system that MIT uses for their courses. But since we know that internet connectivity can be an issue, we have a mirror site program where MIT provides copies of the website, the latest copy, on hard drives that we give for free to any educational nonprofit institution. So our main concern with the material that we put out, it's high quality. We have over 2,300 courses, but what we're really working hard on is trying to get it to the world. And it would be really great if we could find a way to tell people how they can get access to this. We also have MITx, which is in the Office of Digital Learning, as it's already been brought up in this conference already, but we make the MOOCs there. It was founded in 2011, and there are over 5 million registrants so far. You can go through the material for free, which is great, but in order, as was mentioned, in order to get a certificate, you need to pay. But it is done on a sliding scale based on income. But there have been, from MIT, over 150,000 certificates awarded, and there are currently 195 active courses from MIT. And MITx is run through edX as a platform, so you can think of edX as the stage and MITx as the play. So MITx runs through edX, which was founded a year after MITx, and in the 5 years that it's been running, over 110 different schools have partnered with edX in countries all over the world. From North America, obviously, to England and Australia and China and many, many others. So, digital learning has really skyrocketed since 16 years ago when OCW came into the picture. These statistics are from OCW, but as I mentioned, there's 2,300 courses, and MITx is really, really popular. And edX has 110 different schools, and that's crazy for 5 years. That's a lot. That's a lot of information that people have access to. We're also using these tools on MIT's campus. I've heard some talk about, people know about the flipped classroom, but teachers are experimenting, incorporating this into their courses on campus so that students can have some more flexibility and to use these digital tools to see how we can enhance learning with not just distance learning, but using distance learning in a real world, in a real classroom setting, in person. And it's been successful so far. Students seem to like getting instant feedback. That's a really popular thing. And also, having the lectures recorded is really great, because not only does it mean that you don't have to go to class, which obviously you should, but if you have to miss class, you don't fall behind on your lectures. And so that creates a lot of flexibility. And actually, Professor Lorna Gibson is a professor at MIT, and she incorporated this into one of her courses. And she said that the top 3 students never came to class, which sounds really bad, but she was fine with it. And I think that really demonstrates the viability of MIT's materials as a distance learning option. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Roksi. We'll go to the questions later, so I would go directly to the next speaker, Mr. Paul Ronoh.
Yes, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to take you through the Kenya case study in terms of integration of ICT in education. I know we have gone through a lot of research, a lot of stuff. We have learned a lot. It is time to roll our sleeves and try implement this particular program. So I'm going to take you through the Kenya case in terms of how far we've gone in the implementation of ICT integration in education. The content of the presentation will be around 4 bullets. The scope of the program, the prime achievements, implementation approaches, and the power of internet, and key learning and experience. Ladies and gentlemen, the Kenya government, through their Vision 2030, plan to roll out a digital literacy program covering the lower primary, the upper primary, the secondary schools, and the university. And the first phase of the program is to start with the lower primary, class 1 to class 3. The intention in terms of the objective is to have what is called the quality content, skilled teachers, better learning facilities in the school, and also produce 21st century learners who are competent. That is in the smart school. We are also looking at an environment whereby we can do the local assembly of the devices, and R&D in our universities where innovation and skills for young people are cultured. And we are also talking about a smart society where anywhere and everywhere in Kenya you can access internet and you can make business using the technology. The scope of the program was to roll out the first phase in 24,000 primary schools across the country, which are public, distribution of 1.2 million devices, power connection to 24,000 primary schools, distribution of digital content to all the schools, training of over 300,000 teachers, provision of teacher support to the program, setup of 2 local assembly plants in Kenya, employment of over 300,000 jobs direct and indirect, and full engagement of stakeholders. Achievements so far before I talk about the challenges. Within a period of 1 year, the Kenya government has managed to cover over 75% of the primary school, 14,000 primary schools so far in a period of 1 year, after a pilot test for a period of 6 months before the full rollout. They also managed to train over 100,000 teachers in 11,000 primary schools, and also content for class 1, class 2, and class 3 is now available offline and online. In terms of school readiness, through this program, the government has managed to connect to over 22,000 primary schools with power. That also spill to the community in terms of connectivity to power to the community when it comes to reaching the poor of the poorest in the rural village. Within that period, ladies and gentlemen, the government has also set up 2 factories in Kenya to manufacture and assemble the ICT devices and also support the program. What you can see there is one of the universities in Kenya assembling devices. It is no longer done in China, but we do it in Kenya. Item number 2 is that you can see the learning environment has improved. The children are using the devices, and then there is a support center to support the program across the country. That is the achievement so far within a period of 1 year when it comes to full rollout. What happened? Of course, we failed 4 times. First attempt, we realized that we didn't plan very well when it comes to funding, because this is a huge program carrying a lot of money. So when you talk about ICT in education, people of Africa, it is not cheap. It carries a lot of resources, and there is need for proper planning as government so that you can take up this challenge. Number 2, we had issues with the bidders. The third attempt was the complexity of the program, because it was being run under the Ministry of Education. ICT in education, in the creation of ICT in education, is not about pedagogy. It is not about a teacher alone, but it requires a different mind to understand how this integration is done in education. It is not leaving the teacher alone to run the program. Now, what happened? When we failed 3 times, we went into what is called prime preparation, because it is not a simple task, people of Africa. We had to do what is called proper budgeting for the program, because the program we are running is over $200 million for only phase 1. Prime leadership, turned from the top. The head of state had to run the program from the top as the chairman in the project governance. The other one is prime engagement, to make sure that all stakeholders, including the parents, the religious community, the union of teachers, the teacher fraternity, are all engaged in this particular program. The other one is risk mitigation and prime M&E and the policy guideline from the government. That is what we call it, prime preparation for it to take off. You can see in different flips, you can see people crossing the country, trying to reach the deep end of Kenya to access primary schools which are deep in the shacks. Down there you can see the head of state, after successful implementation, trying to monitor the program on the ground. What happened? In terms of management, because we are directly talking about also the power of internet in the deployment of the program. And we use internet, as you know, Kenya is leading in internet connectivity in Africa. As you know, Kenya is also leading in the world in what is called open data. We use that infrastructure and the framework to deploy the program, whereby we had portal for all the schools across the public in terms of accessibility and checking on how ready they are and responding to any issue affecting the implementation. We had a portal on communication to the project managers, a portal for the stakeholders. What you can see there, because this project carries a lot of money, there was need for citizens to be updated any other time on how far the program has gone in their local villages. And the graph you see is a graph for every county in Kenya, and the citizen is able to monitor the progress on the ground and support the program. The power of internet in digital content. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very important item in this debate. Distribution of content and availability of content to this program is the lifeblood of ICT integration in education. It is not about devices distribution, but it's about the content and the quality of content and accessibility of content. And Kenya government adopted what is called cloud platform, whereby it created what is called a Kenya Education Cloud, where all the content are posted and people move away from devices to talking about accessibility. You can use any device you have. And there was a question on what type of content you should drive the content. What we made in Kenya is that the policy is that content is independent of the device and it should be on universal platform, whereby you can use any device to access the content wherever you are. We also put up controls to make sure that the content being generated is quality content. And then we created what is called training awareness in all our content developers and teachers included. This is a structure of content. After we have deployed this program, the biggest challenge we had was content not available for the learners. The devices are in the school, the connectivity is in the school, there is power in the school, but the content deployed to the devices as offline content was exhausted within a very short time by the learners. And the bigger challenge is, where can we get the content for this particular program? And we came up with a platform whereby all content developers, we liberated content. Anybody in the world can develop content and post to the cloud. And we have a regulator called Kenya Institute of Curriculum Education, of Curriculum Development, who normally regulate the content. And once the contents are approved, it goes to the learners, and the learners can buy, and the content developer, wherever he is in this world, through the internet, can get paid, and the other money go to the regulator. That is the content platform for us to address the issue of shortage of content to be used for the program. The content industry itself in Kenya is worth US $13 billion. It is one of the business concepts which has not been exploited. Of course, there were challenges. Challenge number one, as you know about our young children, they get to learn technology faster than some of us. So when the technology was taken to the classroom, the role between the teacher and the child changes immediately. The teacher became a learner and the people became a teacher, because they were able to understand this particular solution very fast. And within no time, they were able to sort of discredit the content and say there is no content because I browsed everything and there is nothing. And our teachers had a lot of problems, and up to now, and we are trying to train our teachers so that they remain teachers and the student remain a student. The other issue was the use of internet, which was a challenge. And you will experience this. Internet is very sweet, but there were a lot of complaints among the religious community and some other quarters on what our children are accessing, what are the controls in place, so that our children don't access any stuff from the internet. The other one is power to schools. Ladies and gentlemen, this program requires money. And when we talk about power to schools, we are talking about huge bills, because for schools to sustain the huge bills, because when you connect schools to internet and power, there are other in the school community, people started using the same environment for charging phones, for also running small businesses in the school, and then the bills goes very high, because that is the only place you can get power. The other thing is infrastructure in our school. Africa, and I believe we are almost the same. There is a challenge in terms of the level of infrastructure in our school. So as we roll out this program, it is good to note that the schools we have need to be sort of uplifted to be in a position to absorb this particular program and run successfully. And as I told you, the digital content, we run short of digital content. And I believe African countries, you can sort of it's a space you can invest on, because I think every other African country will face the same challenges when it comes to content and quality content. The other thing is the buy-in from the stakeholders, because some people realize that this program is huge, and other people like teachers started complaining about additional work for the teacher. Yes, I learned pedagogy in college, What is this additional program being brought in, which look like forcing me to understand technology, which sort of I left long time ago? As you know, technology is changing, and some people don't want things to change. They want status quo. Policy regulation required. From Kenya, we had the National ICT Master Plan, we have the Education Act, and the Strategy in Education 2014, and all those policies were deployed to make sure that there is clear legal framework for support of the program in terms of funding and also in terms of facilitation on the ground. Issues to do with environmental issues. You can see, for example, 1.2 million devices will attract a lot of attention when it comes to e-waste. And the government of Kenya, with the stakeholder NEMA, National Environmental Management Authority, was engaged. And because it was not enough, it was agreed that in every device you take to school, you plant a tree. As you can see, people are very busy planting trees just to address also the issue of e-waste. So at the end of this deployment, we expect to get over 1 million trees planted in Kenya as part of e-waste management. And then the other one is torn at the top. In Kenya environment, the head of state took charge of this program, and we were able to move forward. And all the cabinet secretaries were told to go deep into the reserve to try and understand what is there in the schools, so that when they sit in the parliament, they are able to address issues specific to the rural schools. Because sometimes people can be in headquarters and they don't understand the real programs, the real problems on the ground. The other one is which sector to run this program. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget, leadership in this program is very critical. And when you see ICT in education, you ask yourself, should it be run by Ministry of Education? Is the teacher the right person to run this program? Or is ICT the right person to run this program? The technocrats in ICT. Who is the right person to run this program? And this program failed, the third failure, because the educationist cannot understand how ICT is integrated in education. And it was until the program was put into a big stakeholder forum when ICT authority be now the leader in terms of championing. But apart from ICT running the program, you need proper project managers who understand running such programs. You can see the challenges. We have challenges even in crossing some rivers where there are crocodiles. You can see people using donkeys to carry computers across some rivers. You can see people in the dark trying to carry computers using their bags because the vehicle is stuck. You can see cannons being used in some rivers. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not very easy. You have to be ready to face all those challenges when you are in Africa. So what I want to tell you, the proof is in Kenya. These are true stories, real issues and real challenges. You cannot get them in books. You need to come to Kenya and you will understand them. Otherwise, the children of Africa needs you to support this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. This was very interesting. I would like to invite now the last speaker of this session, Mr. Tighe Flanagan, who will be talking about providing local content for Africa School using Wikipedia. And then we'll have 15 minutes for questions and answers for all the speakers. Please write down your questions so that we can use those 15 minutes efficiently.
All right, let me keep a clock out. So thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed our discussion so far. My name is Tighe Flanagan. I'm with the Wikimedia Foundation, and I'm a senior manager on our education team. So who here has heard of Wikipedia? I'm assuming it's pretty much everyone. So who's used Wikipedia this week? Who uses Wikipedia in more than one language? Okay. Who's ever edited Wikipedia? More hands than I was expecting. Okay, that's really good to hear. So I'm going to talk to you today about something we call the Wikipedia Education Program. It's a program that is supported by the Wikimedia Foundation. The Wikimedia Foundation is a nonprofit based in the Bay Area in California that supports Wikipedia, but there's also a dozen different knowledge projects. There's Wikimedia Commons, Wiktionary, Wikisource. So some of you may be familiar with some of the other wikis out there. We're not all wikis, but we're the knowledge-based ones. So the Wikipedia Education Program, today I'm going to focus on two aspects of it. I could probably talk to you for hours about it. I've been involved with the program for over 3.5 years. Initially just focused on Middle East and now Middle East and Africa. So more of my experience is with the Arabic Wikipedia, but we're also seeing more programmatic activity in Sub-Saharan Africa too. So I'm just calling out two aspects, open knowledge and practical skills. I'm going to be referring to a mutual benefit, a win-win, where students, teachers, institutions, and places like Wikipedia can all benefit from an assignment that is designed with that in mind. We're also focused on entrepreneurship and economy in this dialogue, and I think there are some practical skills that students get by participating in a space like Wikipedia. So it's a win-win, or it's a win-win-win-win. Depending on how many actors you put into it, there's always a way to design for a mutual benefit. And I'm really pleased that this morning we already heard about potentials for partnerships. I hope to have more conversations with you that I've started with many of you individually. And for those who are here Wednesday, we can talk a bit more practically about how some of the country-based chapters might take aspects of these programs if they align with your goals. So we're going to take a big question, why does it matter? I think we titled the session Providing Local Content. I also liked the framing of react and proactive reaction. So it's not necessarily providing, it's producing, creating, collaborating on local content, I think. So I'm not sure if you can see the red circle. It's basically around Western Europe. This is a few years old, but it's still fairly accurate. There's more information that's geotagged on English Wikipedia inside that red circle than outside the red circle. So, but this shows, this is also a few years old, but the trend is still fairly accurate. Who's editing Wikipedia on the continent of Africa? It probably maps pretty closely to bandwidth, access costs, things like that. But we see the most participation in Egypt. Then we see some participation in South Africa, but it's mostly North Africa and South Africa, and not a lot in the middle. So when you look up an article about the Kigali airport, who wrote it? It could be someone in Canada. What do they know about the Kigali airport? So Wikipedia is the encyclopedia that anyone can edit, but most people don't. I'm happy to see there were almost 10 hands in the audience. That was more than I usually get. But as anything that humans make, it is fallible. So it's only as good as the people who make it and the sources we use. The people who are writing Wikipedia do not look like the people in this room by and large. So if you're consuming Wikipedia, it's about 80% Euro-American males who are writing Wikipedia. And so they are writing from that perspective. And so you're seeing less content about women, less content about what we might call the Global South or emerging communities. And so there are huge gaps in knowledge. Another thing to think about is that Wikipedia is not a project that has an end date. It's a constant knowledge project. So we want people to contribute, and if you start with a sentence, you start with a sentence. It's a wiki, it's iterative. It has to start somewhere. It doesn't have to be perfect today, and it will never be perfect, but you have to iterate. We've learned from some of our awareness research that most people, you can't walk into a room and assume everyone knows what Wikipedia is. This is obviously a crowd that knows the internet space, so knows Wikipedia, but we had colleagues who did research that show that less than a quarter of people in Nigeria know what Wikipedia is off the top of their heads. Less than a quarter of people in India know what Wikipedia is. Less than 50% of Mexico know what Wikipedia is. So there's huge awareness gaps. And that also includes, what is an encyclopedia? What's the role of an encyclopedia? For all the educators in the room, you've probably told your students, don't use Wikipedia, don't cite Wikipedia. And I can't say I disagree with you there, because we've forgotten what the role of an encyclopedia is. You don't cite Britannica in your paper, and you don't cite Wikipedia in your paper. It's not a double standard. You go to primary and secondary sources, not tertiary sources of knowledge. So that's an example of what a student could take away from a Wikipedia assignment, is knowing what's the role of Wikipedia. It's a collaborative thing. It's fallible. You should look at the sources, the references, and see if it makes sense. And it's a practical application of skills. We see a lot of students who are in translation faculties. Our biggest program in Africa would be in Egypt, and there's hundreds of students every semester who are translating articles from English and French, even Chinese, into the Arabic Wikipedia, and they say that it's gotten them jobs before, because they can say, I'm a content producer and I can prove it. We've talked about certification, and that's also an issue. So we don't necessarily issue certificates, but it's something where a local program implementer could certainly issue a certificate of completion that could accompany someone's CV. So I'll talk a bit about how it works. I might be a bit vague on some things in big picture, but I'm happy to have many follow-up conversations. The main idea is that it's a flexible model. So you're trying to find the mutual benefit for a student and for open knowledge. So if you're teaching cell biology, you look at the cell biology articles on Wikipedia. Are they good? Where can they be improved? And get your students to improve them. And your students will have better writing skills, they'll have better research skills, they'll have digital and media literacy. You can also be a graphic arts teacher and get your students to illustrate a concept. Wikipedia, when you look at it, it's not the most beautiful website. There's not many pictures, there's not many animations, there's not many videos, so there's a huge opportunity for improvement. And we've seen visual arts classes make a huge improvement. We've also seen students add audio recordings. We have classes in Mexico that insert local language pronunciations of place names because they're not Spanish, they're from a local language. And so no one knows, if you're not from there, you don't know how to pronounce it. The similar activities could be done anywhere. And one important aspect that I'll probably touch on a bit more is that connecting with the local community. And by that I mean whoever's editing that Wikipedia is that community. We call them Wikipedians or Wikimedians. And because there's not a lot of editing happening in sub-Saharan Africa, there's not a lot of quote-unquote community to build on. So we're hoping that maybe we can partner with other established communities who have mutual interest or aligned goals and maybe piggyback on that. So I'm just going to give a few regional highlights. I mentioned Egypt. That's our longest running program. It's almost in its 5th year, mostly in Cairo, and we have hundreds of students every semester who contribute to Arabic Wikipedia. They've actually contributed 10% of the high quality content on Arabic Wikipedia is from our students in Egypt and a few of the other Middle Eastern countries. What else can I call out? We're seeing some student clubs getting formed in Nigeria and Ghana. We have seen people focusing on cultural heritage in Tunisia. There's actually an ISOC-funded initiative in Uganda, which I learned about recently and just met the implementer this morning. I don't know if Liliana is here. But so there's people who are taking advantage of Wikipedia as a space where everyone can play, do experiments, hopefully improve content. So briefly, I'm going to say how you might get involved. If you're an educator, you can include Wikipedia in your classroom in a big way or a small way. You could have a day on Wikipedia, or you could have a semester assignment based on Wikipedia. Typically, we see people using it at the university level because writing for Wikipedia usually takes a certain writing skill, certain fluency, certain research skills. But you can obviously you could work with fifth graders in a group and think critically. Like that's an assignment you can do. It's important to design an assignment that works for both the student level and for Wikipedia. Don't expect writing a Wikipedia article is hard. I don't know about the 10 people who edited here. I make very small edits. I don't write full-length articles. I correct typos. I add a sentence. Asking your students to write 2 paragraphs is a huge assignment. So asking them to write a featured article is an even bigger assignment. So think about manage the expectations of the learner. There are aspects of a MOOC that come to mind. You do get instant feedback from community, but we also have, it's an online community where people are anonymous, so you might have some nasty feedback. So you could prepare your students for that as well. And that's where the community aspect is really important. And the main thing I always tell everyone is to start small and iterate. If you have an idea, even if it's a crazy idea, let's try it. It's important to make mistakes in the pilot phase, but not to make mistakes at scale. Let's find what works and then scale it up from there. And I'm also just calling out, we have a regional group of Wikimedians. They gather about once a year. The last conference, what they call Wiki Indaba, was in Ghana in January, and the next one will probably be in Tunis in 2018. So if that's a space you're interested in learning more about, just watch for it. I think I have a picture of them somewhere. So if this is something that you're interested in, I'm going to talk more about it on Wednesday, kind of a more practical implementer frame. But if you go to education.wikimedia.org, we have lots of documentation, we have lots of case studies. We have a step-by-step guide for planning a program. So starting with your goal, what is your goal and why is that your goal, to what does the classroom look like, to how do you evaluate, to how do you iterate. So that's the main gist of it. And I wanted to leave you with a picture of some of our community from Africa. So this is from January from our Wiki Indaba in 2017, and maybe we'll see you at the next one in 2018. I don't have business cards on me, I apologize, so if you do want, feel free to take a picture of this and stalk me online. I'm usually pretty easy to find. I have a very unique name. All right, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Tighe, again for a very interesting presentation. I think we were well served by this session. We had 4 inspiring presentations. I think they give us a lot of food of thought for the next roundtable discussion. But before we go to the next one, let's have a few minutes, I think 15 minutes of questions and answers. Is there any question? Okay, Bubakar, let me identify a few of you and then, yes, I think you're from Makerere, you're from Uganda, yeah. Okay, the 3 of you. Okay, Bubakar, and please introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, David. Bubakar Bari, Wakren. I have a question to Mrs. Freeman about the MIT OpenCourseWare. You mentioned that you are providing, say, content, to be stored locally, for institutions that are educational institutions for not-for-profit. And you said that the content is updated. So how often is it updated? And you said that it is on hard disk. What is the volume of the content? And do you also have a process whereby it's transferred through pipes?
Yeah. So the content is static. It's meant for schools who have trouble getting access to internet. But the hard drive, all you have to do is email OCW and ask for it. Yeah, and it's the entire website. It's everything on the website, including our companion websites. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
And how often do you update the content?
So the hard drive only doesn't end up getting updated until you request a new one. So normally OCW updates, we try to keep all of our courses within 2 years relevancy. So, you know, if it's been a couple of years, you might want to get a new one.
Thank you. Please use the mic because we have interpretation.
Isaac Kasana from Uganda, Reni, Uganda. I was very interested in the presentation of Paul from Kenya. I just had a few questions to be clarified. When you said you had several stages of prime, is that prime like prime time or priming like priming a pump? Because you just used the word prime, so I was not sure whether you went through a phase of fine-tuning what you had done in the first stage. Then secondly, you mentioned a figure of $200 million US. Is that for a particular phase or for the whole project so far?
Thank you. I think I will clarify on the issue of the prime. The word prime was used categorically. But in the implementation of the program by Kenya, the first thing we did was a pilot test of the program, which we tested in around 150 schools to test whether the solution works for a period of 6 months. Within that period, when the solution was found to be working likely, we roll out. So we call it prime planning. That was prime planning, the last part of the success of the program. On the issue of the $200 million US, that is phase 1 of the program for class 1, class 2, and 3. We have a plan for upper primary, secondary schools, and the university. So that is only for phase 1, class 2, and class 3. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Ida and I'm a director for the Regional Consortium of Experts and chair for outreach for the Internet Society Kenya chapter. My question is to MIT, and that would be the lovely lady, an intelligent lady, of course. And my question would be, it's very exciting to hear that you're actually rolling out e-learning and integrating it or sharing these resources that you have with non-governmental organizations. I think it's very exciting. That's the future, that's the way it should be done. We've been advocating for this for a long time, but not everyone seems to have bought into that idea. What do you think what do you think is the problem to some of these organizations that fail to buy into the idea of sharing knowledge and information for future development of our nations?
So I think one of the issues is proprietary technology, and a lot of professors feel that they're engaging in novel research that might get stolen. Or I've been told by professors that they feel that it cheapens the experience for students there, which I have talked to so many students at MIT who none of them feel that way. And I think that we just need to spread that message.
Thank you. We can take some more questions. Maybe I can say something here. I think, and that is something that will be interesting for our discussion in the next session. The biggest challenge for Africa will be to have its own content for the coming years. I think Aminata said, well, it's good to have MOOCs and so on, but they won't have a lot of impact the way they are. I don't think that, maybe they can be an additional document, but we have our own curricula, we have our own history, we have our own things. And unless we have our own local content, I don't think that, even Wikipedia will have that much effect. So I think our biggest challenge is to encourage ourselves. We might have good reasons before. I think, I don't know, you mentioned connectivity might be an issue before, but I think it's less of an issue today. Many Africans have reasonable connectivity to edit, Wikipedia. It's true that we might not have devices, etc., but if we have the will, I think there will be the way. So how can we really work to ensure that in the next 10 years, the picture that we have seen will change drastically, and we will see really a very different picture. And we really can do. I have seen in some other areas where we had such a dark picture, where we have, the mobile is an example. We always had, Africa, nothing is happening, and then, when we had, put our minds and pockets in it, we have managed to change the situation. So maybe we can say something about what should we do to really reverse the situation of local content in Africa. I will give the opportunity for Boubacar, because he was trying to say something, then Pascal.
Yes, Boubacar again. Actually, I wanted to have, I had a question for Pascal. You said it right now, David, that connectivity will become less and less an issue. And I do think that sharing knowledge is also very important, even in the region, regionally, between the countries. I wanted to ask a question to Pascal. Do you have measurements or data, or if not, do you intend to measure, let's say, traffic between the members of the UBUNTUNET Alliance, excluding transit, traffic, that is just cross the country to go to Europe or something like that. Do you have figures, on exchange of traffic between the countries that are members of the UBUNTUNET Alliance? I think this is something also that will be very important, to measure, once our three regional networks, are interconnected.
Yes.
Thank you, Boubacar. This is a very relevant question. We ourselves talking about, when we were filling the grant application with European Union, this was some of the questions came up. That what is the impact in terms of research? And we don't have a data up to today. However, we met a Malawian student who is doing a PhD student at the University of Cape Town in South Africa, and we agree that his research topic is really to analyze the impact of a connectivity in terms of research output, and he would like to undertake visit a certain number of countries, and we want to fund part of his study so that we can share the data. It will be ready in 1.5 year time, and we have not yet finalized the grant that we want to fund. We want to give it to him, but it's something that we will get it very soon. We know from a preliminary study that he have shared with us that in terms of traffic has grown between, for example, South Africa and Kenya, between South Africa and Tanzania. And so we have some clear indication that since the network, the physical network exists and researchers are using it, the term of collaboration and traffic has grown really in the region. We get the concrete figures maybe a year or a year and a half time. I would like, since I have the mic, take the opportunity that way to add, try to answer what you were saying. I think it's, for the coming year, the most important for us is a real regional strategy in terms of knowledge producing. We need an institution to take a lead, and I think maybe the NREN, why not Internet Society, Association African University, or regional university associations, to come up with a real strategy of maybe standardize the repository in terms of each university to generate and packaging the research output from various institutions and put them maybe at the regional level, and technically we see how it works, so that we can really start to produce the knowledge. Two, it's very important, otherwise we are going to regret in the future, is the quality assurance. It's not because material is online that it has been necessarily peer-reviewed, and it reflects the scientific value. So we need to organize ourselves, quality assurance to apply for all online teaching, online classroom, e-learning, and also the knowledge that is produced. Is only a professor in the field that can confirm if an article on a genetic on the website reflects the state of the knowledge on this specific topic. Otherwise, it could be very dangerous to leave our youth to go and copy things which probably is not relevant. So the quality assurance is one aspect. As we were saying, the connectivity is not a major issue, even if it's still in some area, it's still an issue. But globally speaking, and particularly in this region, East and Southern Africa, as well as in West Africa, is not a major issue. So now we need to organize ourselves to produce the knowledge, to review it, and assist it by quality assurance.
Tai, and then Ahmed, and then we'll, okay, Suleiman, and then we'll end.
I just wanted to briefly talk about the connectivity issue, because I think when I showed the map, I think I gave a quick throwaway explanation of there was less connectivity in sub-Saharan Africa, and that may have been the problem. And I think that's a very simplistic explanation, because I think we've seen that there's also, if you build it, they will come mentality. So once there's high-speed broadband everywhere, then the problem is fixed. But I think we saw in the React presentation that if you don't think about the user, the use case, the socio-political, cultural, other implications, people may not use it, know the value of using it. So we see a situation where you could compare sub-Saharan Africa to the Arabian Gulf. The Arabian Gulf builds their infrastructure, they have education cities, they also have no Wikipedia editors. So why is that? So obviously you can design for program awareness, outreach, and so that's the next more meaningful step. And I think that might have a greater impact than just infrastructure. So it's not, they complement each other, but it's not one or the other.
Thank you, Ahmed.
Collaborative MOOC, thank you, for the constitution of a collaborative MOOC, because we faced a specific problem. Each time we told or we tried to work on online content, teachers or professors just refused to get to provide notes or marks to students who validated online courses, because they said that first of all, the internal rules of the educational system we had in Senegal just didn't recognize the fact that the student could also learn online. So it was not only a difficulty based on the access, or the difficulty was more a regulation problem. So what we decided to do was to work with 4 other universities. We are actually working with Yamoussoukro, the École Polytechnique of Yamoussoukro, of Yaoundé, with Lausanne, and to provide one content that should be or can be recognized by all 4 institutions and can be shared because they have been produced collaboratively between 4 teachers for 4 different institutions, and 3 of them being African. But to be able to do that, we also had to convince the rectorate and the direction of the university to accept that each mark or note that can be provided by the platform during that MOOC should also be recognized locally. So shouldn't we also work on the institutional rules to be able to progress in the ICT part in our universities? That is my question.
Okay. Is it a question or rather?
It was. I've mentioned an experience and told you about the problem we faced and how we tried to solve it.
Yeah, I think let's leave it as an open question. Let's leave it as an open question for discussion during the roundtable discussions. And Suleiman, the last question, and then we'll close.
Bonjour, moi c'est Suleiman Umtanaga de la Côte d'Ivoire.
Je m'appelle Suleiman Umtanaga. I'm going to speak French. My name is Suleiman. I have a question to address to Mr. Flanagan and Pascal. When Pascal gave his presentation today, he said the connectivity in Africa, in the Ubuntu area, was cheaper, and that within Wakren area it was more expensive. We have the same cables that reach Wakren and Ubuntu. How come the prices on space would be more expensive and not in the other? That was my first question. The second one is, which is addressed to Mr. Flanagan. I liked his presentation on Wikipedia. Regarding quality of scientific production, do you have a committee that verifies the quality of what is uploaded on your platform? As lecturers, the university would like to contribute because students use that content, but we're not sure whether the content is vetted. How do you vet? How do you verify the content? Do you use robots? What technique do you use to ensure the content is accurate? Thank you.
Pascal, vous pouvez répondre et après on va.
Thank you, Pascal. You may respond, and then Tighe will. Thank you, Suleiman. What I said is that, and that applies to Wakren, prices will be reduced when Wakren will have its own network. Right now, it's not available. Right now, UBUNTUNET, in the picture that I showed, we have a leasing. We have leased 2 cables that go from Cape Town to Amsterdam through by the west coast, and to Cape Town to London from the east coast. So we have a physical infrastructure, and we have the national networks for research and education, which are connected, and they pay. One of the clients is the CEO of Ronoh, Uganda Research Network Engineer Kasana. He's there. You can discuss with him, and that's what leads us to that pooling. The pooling of resources, and the prices go down. before that, Dr. Rishan, who is sitting next to you, conducted a study on the issue, and he realized that countries like Zambia were paying $600 per megabyte second. $600 today, we are talking about $30. So why is that so? It's because there is a network and the prices went down. The same thing when Wakren, towards the end of the year, when Wakren will have its own network, I'm convinced that the prices will also be reduced more than 10 times in the West African region.
Question. I'm going to respond in English. I'm sorry, but I think it's a very good question, and it's a question I get every time I present, so thank you. Quality is obviously a concern, and verifiability and verification, and so there's a few caveats. Each language Wikipedia is different. So English versus French versus Italian versus Arabic. You can look at the same article and they'll be different articles. They're not linked. So you might have a high quality article in English and a not so good article in Italian. That's just the reality. Wikipedia in general is a mixed bag. You can have very high quality content there, and you can have some frankly poor quality content. There are a few that we're trying to get better at signifying which content is good. Community will do what is basically a peer review and review quality or content based on a rubric, and so there's standards for good articles and featured articles that are shared across languages. So I mentioned that of the quality content in Arabic, 10% of that has come from our students in Cairo, Egypt, which is a huge accomplishment. But there's not a lot of those articles. We're talking about a few thousand articles in Arabic, maybe tens of thousands of articles in English. So it's a small pool of peer-reviewed content, and it varies from language to language. But we are transparent about everything. So if someone sees an issue with an article, we flag it at the top. This article doesn't have sources. This article has poor language. This article needs updating. And so there are opportunities to improve it, but we don't claim everything is perfect. And we would hope that you would look at the sources and verify.
Oui, je voudrais donner des compléments d'information.
Yes, I'd like to add some information. Once the WACRN will have been established, this will be a closed network. It will be a communication network that will not go through the economic operators that actually bill the usage of this bandwidth in the region. So this will be a very specific network with specific agreements that will allow them to actually use a closed network. Besides that, at the ECOWAS level, I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but since April 1st, some telecom operators of the 8 countries no longer impose taxes on roaming. So this is actually progress, and by the end of the year, the 7 other countries will also withdraw some of these taxes. So all this to reduce costs on communication within the ECOWAS region, and this was not the case before. Because when talking about the free circulation of goods and people, I mean, the free circulation of internet is actually also on the table, and we will be allowing some of the countries to actually operate without taxation. Well, this is a very good news. And I guess this is the right moment to actually move on to the next schedule. So, Bethel, what's next on the agenda? Thank you, Dawit.
Special thanks goes to the speakers as well for taking the time and to come here and share their presentations with us, and also share their experiences and thoughts. With this, So with this, we come to the end of the 5th session.